Thank you for coming to How Affordable and Open Educational Resources, or A&OER, Impact Student Decision Making. It might surprise you. Just a clarification before we get into our presentation about A&OER. OER, as you know, is anything that is openly licensed or in the public domain. And for today's purposes, we are defining the A as something that is affordable, something that students wouldn't have to purchase, but is copyrighted, such as an ebook from the library, journal article, or copyrighted website. My name is Stephanie Hallam, and I am the Education Information Librarian at Southeast Missouri State University.
My name is James Newman. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Political Science at Southeast Missouri State University.
And my name is Mary Bangert, and I am the Government Information and Literacy Librarian here at Southeast Missouri State University.
Okay, briefly I'll give a little bit of an overview with the literature review and how we kind of got started on this project. So when you start taking a look at how students and faculty view OER, they view the content as legitimate and as valid as a traditional textbook. This is not just with older faculty, but also with younger faculty who kind of grew up without the distinction of finding information in a traditional book versus online. So the question of legitimacy has pretty much been answered in the literature. And so students often rate faculty using OER as more kind, encouraging, creative even, than the faculty member who often uses a traditional copyrighted textbook. And that's something that has been explored in the literature, and we tend to ask a few questions of our students in that manner in our subject, in our study. And they often see faculty as increasing, the students have increasing satisfaction of faculty who use the OER in their classroom. And they kind of see it as more convenient because they just don't see textbooks as convenient, but electronic access and being able to access it through electronic device is something they view as quite convenient and how they often interact with the world. And one of the things that we looked at we looked at a lot of this literature to help develop the ideas and the questions that we include in our survey and our focus group questions. All right. So basically how this got started, I taught a course, a senior seminar, using 100% OER. Students did not have to pay for textbook. And I thought, well, this is going to be wonderful. They're going to be so happy about this. And they just really didn't say much of anything about it. And I talked to a few students because some faculty said, well, why don't you ask them? And people at other universities said, well, why don't you go out and ask students? And so I did ask the students, and basically what they were telling me is, well, I kind of chose to take this course because it fit with my day. I heard you weren't too much work, and I thought it might be kind of interesting. And I thought, okay, so I did all this work on creating a course out of 100% OER. I didn't even have an OER textbook. And I thought maybe I should expand the population to find out, are the students in this senior seminar that I'm talking to representative of all students? And is it the students in the senior seminar similar to like students taking a gen ed and so forth? So in other words, what motivates these students in their decision-making process to choose courses, and how do they feel about faculty who use OER?
And so last spring, emails were sent out to all our undergraduate students to complete a survey regarding their perceptions of OER. And you can see that QR code there. You can access the survey if you want to see all of the questions. But I will just in summary say that there were 16 questions. 7 of those were demographics, such as, are you a first-generation college student? Are you receiving a Pell Grant? And so forth. So we received 422 responses. And although that is a small sample of our student population, you will see on this next slide that it is a very good representation of our student population. Now, I would like to point out that students who responded had a bit higher than average GPA. This is not necessarily surprising, since I would expect students with a higher GPA to perhaps be more responsive and engaged. We also had, excuse me, more seniors than freshmen respond to our survey. Now, this could be the result of freshmen not being in the habit of checking their email. And by the time they are seniors, they are more likely to be checking those emails. And also seniors may be more committed to university scholarship and therefore more likely to respond. So looking over the responses to our survey, we did find access as a recurring theme. In fact, 13% of our students reported access to required materials is a significant barrier to reading an assigned text. One of the questions we asked, if we'll go to the next slide, was when a professor assigns required reading, how often would you actually read it? And the responses are shown in purple there. And then we did ask another question that if required reading materials were included and linked into your Canvas course, how often would you read the required reading? And so you'll see that those responses went way up to the majority said most of the time they would read those materials if they were linked in Canvas. And it went down as that 0% would never not read the material. And you can see that 6% of those students that first said they are not reading anything. Let's go to our next slide. And so over 42% of our students reported that they would take more hours each semester if there were no textbook costs. Now, that's what they said they would do. And the university obviously would get more revenue out of them if they were taking more hours, and that would be great. So we don't know if this would actually happen, but this is definitely what they reported. And so in summary, those significant findings are that students would read more if those courses, those required readings were linked in Canvas. They would also enroll in more hours, and they would select the courses that offered free textbooks.
So of those students who took the survey, they were given the opportunity to volunteer and to participate in a focus group. And we randomly selected 15 students, and we had 2 focus groups. Each was an hour long, and there were 8 questions. And those questions really asked students to elaborate on their survey responses. In addition to elaborating on the survey responses, we showed them an OER, and there's a QR code here as well as a UR if you would like to access that. And it is a modern world history textbook. And the reason we selected that is by this time in their academic career, students had either taken or had at least some familiarity with world history so that they could kind of respond and provide reactions to what they thought of it as a potential textbooks. And then we also described our current OER initiative that we have on campus, and we asked for their comments on that. So they were very open with what they preferred about textbooks, and a lot of these aren't very surprising. They really get into how do students process information and their helpful study resources, such as practice questions, example questions, application examples, and summaries. This is more of that kind of assessments that they can do on their own to assess their learning. We also know that students are very visual in their learning, so their mentioning of diagrams and images or bolded terms or a table of contexts and indexes to kind of locate that information resonates with their learning styles. A few things that were surprising was that they wanted timeless information. They didn't want things that would go out of date, such as statutes or laws that would be changed. And they were really interested in information provided by professional organizations. Now, our university does have a textbook rental system. And so for the students that are renting those textbooks, they really appreciated those notes from previous students in the textbooks. Of course, they were very open with what they were frustrated with. They were really frustrated when the textbooks were not used in class. You can see some of those first 2 quotes there, especially like, we didn't need the textbook and the teacher told us that. She said, you'll only need the textbook if you're doing bad by week 3 or 4. They were also very frustrated when things were out of date. So having to skip over information in a textbook because it was no longer correct was very frustrating for them. And our students, they tend to mainly carry their cell phones or their laptops, and so carrying much more than a backpack. They don't carry a backpack, so anything extra for class they really don't like to take. Now, when we provided that modern world history OER, these are some of the reactions. And of course, we will share these slides out so you can take a good look at all of these. But in summary, they were really excited. They wanted to know when these were available and why they hadn't had them as freshmen. They knew it would definitely save them time and money. And there were a lot of comments about accessibility, such as Control F and finding things or being able to access it wherever they're at. So maybe they have a break time at work, they can pull it up on their phone, they can do a reading of a selection or something like that. And so it really helped them. They thought, if this were to be a possibility, to have it to access and study as whenever they were available to do so. Now, the conversations also provided some insights that we weren't aware of. As by federal law, we do provide students with all of the course costs. However, that is in a different portal from the portal where they actually do their registration for courses. So they don't actually see that at that time unless they have both of those pulled up. So it's difficult for them to know that. Also, freshmen don't have that choice always, because oftentimes those freshmen first year or first semester coming in will have those courses assigned for them based on those gen ed classes. So they weren't always aware of this. So this was something maybe we can strengthen in the future. And then when we suggested what do you think if this was an option, they were very excited about it. I love this quote where it says, "I would wake up early in the morning for a class that provides these free resources." And this gets back to that literature review that James was speaking about. It would influence my decision on whether or not I feel more appreciated in a class myself. So I would feel the professor cares about my needs, costs, time, responsibility, and I would want to be with that professor in that course.
Okay, so what did we learn? Well, obviously, to me, this was obvious, but still, students are not uniform in course selection decisions. They're often a reflection of their situation in life and the types of course that they're trying to select, be it a gen ed or a major. The students do like the idea of A&OER textbooks, just like everybody kind of likes the idea of something that's cheap, free, less cost, because obviously cost is always a concern with students. And along these lines, one of the things that we saw was that students tend to have a set budget. I assume that's kind of governed by financial aid or a loan, and if the textbook costs are lower, then they would be more inclined to go toward the tuition, purchasing courses and such. And that the students, engaged students, completed the survey and often, but they indicated that they don't always read the materials, which I don't think anybody's been teaching sees that as much of a surprise. But the students did have certain types of frustrations along with preferences. And one of the big things seems to be just information on the cost of the textbook. Federally speaking, federal law says that this information has to be available, but sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to find this information. Another thing is that embedded materials such as electronically available through an online learning system, the students indicated that they would have greater interaction with that, and hopefully that would increase and translate toward more reading. All right, so we feel that by giving this feedback from the students, it looks like that OER would improve access to the content in addition to increased use of the content, which means reading and reviewing and so forth. And they feel like this would be a very easy way to update the content. They wouldn't be stuck with a textbook that, especially given like changing laws or regulations, would be out of relevance, basically. And it also helps meet a lot of universities' mission strategic plans of retention and engagement with content enough so that they would stay in school and complete courses and to make relevant progress in taking courses, possibly even more than they'd anticipate. And it also gives students a sense that they are heard, because they often, one of their big complaints is always something related to the cost of something. And when it looks like the decision maker, be it a faculty member or university, decides, okay, we are going to work to reduce the cost and help students, if nothing else, it really does give students the sense that they are, that they feel they are being heard. All right. So again, we hope that this will increase the number of hours. And we also believe, of course, they say that it would increase greater engagement. We have a situation in our school where, you know, the tutors, where did they get the books to help the students with when they're tutoring them? If it was OER, well, they could easily get this. And also it might help with greater engagement with the content, would hopefully translate to improving GPA and therefore scholarships and graduation rates. But to be honest with you, you know, we got the feedback of their interest, and to test this to see if, you know, they walk the walk in addition to talking the talk, you need to basically make this information available and adopt an OER to find out if this is exactly where students are really going to go. And you have there's a survey here that we would like for you to complete. I apologize. Stephanie, will you kind of give the details on this?
Certainly.
Thank
So
you.
we just kind of want to hear some feedback on your thoughts about our presentation. And at this point, I know we're super limited on time, and I apologize. But if you have any questions, try to field some of those in the chat during the presentation, but we're happy to take those. And we'd, of course, love to hear your thoughts on our presentation as well. Are there any questions? And you're welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like, instead of writing it in the chat for time's sake.
And I think our contact information is available by email, our email information. So if, you know, something hits you later today when you're having dinner, oh, I wanted to ask them something. There we go. We're certainly available.
Anna asks, how many students filled out the survey?
422.
It was extremely challenging getting students to complete it. We offered we didn't get into this, but we got an internal grant to offer like 3 $50 gift cards to hopefully entice students to do that. It was a bit of a struggle, because part of it was time and trying to get 15 people to attend our 2 sessions, our focus groups that where we got obviously a rich amount of data qualitatively, and that data really helped us fill in some of the gaps of the questionnaire and so forth. But because they were all given a $25 gift card for their attendance. So it we did the best we could, but still it's a bit of a challenge, and trying to get students to show up for things like that and complete a questionnaire. I don't know how much experience other people have and whether your course evaluations are online and all that, but if you ever deal with trying to get students to respond to things, especially through email or something like that, that can be a challenge right there. Yeah, 422. Quite happy about that part.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, James, and Mary. We really appreciate your time.